Welcome to the Friday Happy Hour with victory strategist, award-winning author and your happy hour host, Annmarie Kelly. Each week, Annmarie chats with women who have reinvented, started over or wrote fabulous next chapters. They share how they overcame their midlife challenges and how you can too. So kick back with some good happy hour something to drink and enjoy today's show.
All of my friends tell me that I'm the good girl, yes they do. They all see me as being so perfect, little Miss Goody Two-Shoes. If I do something a little risque, they all gasp and I just say, good girl.
Hi and welcome. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour with me, Annmarie Kelly, and I'm that recovering good girl and your Victorious Woman Empowerment Partner. And this is where us Victory Chicks and you guys who care about us meet on Fridays to chat about things we can do to make our lives better, more fulfilling, give us a little more jazz and sparkle. Thanks for coming to Happy Hour this Friday. You know, you might remember that last October I traveled to Pittsburgh by way of Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania. And after I got home, I have to admit, I was a little obsessed with Punxsutawney and Punxsutawney Phil. So I invited AJ Dereume, who is from Punxsutawney Phil's inner circle. Did you know that Ground Hog has his own inner circle? Well, AJ Dereume is in it, and he's coming to Happy Hour today. And he's Phil's handler. Who knew Phil had a handler? So we're going to have some fun as we get ready for next week's annual weather forecasting event, Groundhog Day. So AJ is going to be with us shortly. So you know how a couple weeks ago I was complaining about the Women's March and questioning if any of the many camera-hugging celebrities were going to do anything positive with their power to make a difference for women? Well, so far I don't see that they're doing anything, and not that they aren't, but I don't see anything specifically when the camera isn't on. But I'll tell you who is making a difference. A bunch of young gymnasts. And these women who were abused by that monster, Larry Nassar, finally got some tiny piece of satisfaction this week when they made victim impact statements at Nassar's sentencing. And the judge showed no mercy. She even said, "I'm signing your death warrant," when she sentenced him to, I think it was like forever. Like he'll never, 150 years or something. That lout will never see another day of freedom as long as he lives. Which, considering he's only in his 50s, means that he should be spending a pretty long time behind bars in an environment in which his fellow inmates consider child sexual abuse practically worse than murder. Of course, Nassar maintains he was like offended that they would do victim impact statements, and he says he was a good doctor and that that he was helping those young girls, and that this all stems from charges of possession of child pornography, which he admitted to, and that the gymnasts were fabricating the stories of abuse. Even if you wanted to believe that, could 150 women all be fabricating their stories of abuse while they were members of their gymnastics teams? And here's the big thing. Many of them told the USA gymnastics people, the Olympic people, and also people from the University of Michigan, where Nassar was practicing. They were told about the abuse, and then they were ignored. Well, they weren't ignored this week. And what they did, and not a big march with camera-hungry celebrities, but what they did is something that I think is going to make a difference. Because already some of those women are speaking to groups of young women and telling them that it isn't always about stranger danger, but that people who say they are helping, that sometimes the people who say that they're helping you could be doing you wrong. And on the heels of this, I hope the medical community, schools, churches, and every organization starts policing itself better. And we'll see. Well, that was one piece of big news this week. And so was something else. How about those Eagles? We're going to the Super Bowl. I don't even like football, and I'm excited. And what a game. I was with my cousins, Richard and Marianne, who made an awesome dinner, and we always have a good time together. And then, to be honest with you, after dinner, Joseph and Richard went into the family room to watch the game, and Marianne and I sat and gabbed the whole time, which I so loved doing. But the TV was on in the kitchen, so I was able to see who scored and, what and when, which, of course, it was the Eagles doing most of the scoring. But even if I hadn't been watching, I would have known, because with each touchdown and each good call, Joseph would come into the kitchen and do his Eagles happy dance. I'm wondering how many of you have an Eagles happy dance that you do. In Joseph's case, that dance alone is worth watching the game. The only thing is, did you see how much those tickets are going for? Thousands of dollars for one seat. Would you ever spend that much money on a game? Honestly, I don't think there's been a game invented that I'd spend that much money to see. Or a celebrity, a singer. Even the Game of Thrones. Even our Phillies. If I was spending $3,500, $4,500, it better be for a fabulous cruise or a month in an Italian villa or something that would last. Even a dental implant. Although I can understand if you're a serious football fan, going to the Super Bowl game with a team you've rooted for all your life would be the game of a lifetime. And memories you'd have for a lifetime, especially if our team won. And if you remember when Christy was here last week, she seemed pretty positive that we would win last week's game. And didn't it seem like she even thought we could go all the way? That would be so much fun. Of course, she didn't want to really say, like if you listened to, when I asked her, she didn't really want to say, but, Christy's from New York. So, you know how those New Yorkers are. If it isn't the Giants or the Jets, it probably doesn't really matter. I'm just kidding. Christy's a professional. She wouldn't let that stuff get in her way. Or would she? Anyway, that's what it costs to be in the stadium for the Super Bowl, thousands of dollars. But this morning, get this, I went online to see how much tickets are, and all that came up were the parking tickets. And I guess if you can't get in to see the game, you can tailgate, right? So that made sense. But then I was shocked at what I saw. Those tickets start at $27, and they're like a mile away from the stadium, and they go up to $300. And even the $300 tickets are a couple blocks away from the stadium. Now, would you do that, pay that kind of money to hang out with in some parking lot blocks away, maybe even a mile away from the stadium in the winter, and not a PA winter, but a Minnesota winter? Not me. If I'm spending that kind of money, I want to be inside and warm and well-fed and maybe getting a little buzz on, too. In fact, without spending that kind of money, that's exactly what I will be doing on Super Bowl Sunday. Probably like a lot of you Victory Chicks and you guys, enjoying a fabulous game in the warmth and hospitality of someone's house, maybe your house, with people who are excited to be there. And I think it's funny that season ticket holders are selling their special season tickets to other people for thousands of dollars. Like, isn't getting Super Bowl tickets one of the bonuses of being a season ticket holder? Don't you get picked first to get those tickets at the best prices? I don't know, because I'm not a football fan, but I would think that would be it. Although, if you have them and you go to the game, you have to fly to Minnesota you have to get a hotel room, all that stuff. Or you could sell your ticket for enough money to pay for the whole next season and have a Super Bowl party at your house and still have money left for a nice weekend away with your sweetie. I would do that. But it's fun to watch the news and see all the excitement. In fact, between last week's game and this week's game, it's probably the most fun of the season. Don't you think? It's like that excitement, that piece of waiting to see what happens and knowing that you got to to the end and you won, and now you get to go to the big stage. It's got to be, it's exciting. Even for those of us who really think football's kind of like, dopey. But then, sooner is Super Bowl over, and then the draft picks stuff is over. That's when our Phils start spring training. Yep. They play their first Grapefruit League game in Clearwater on February 23rd. How cool would it be if the Eagles won the Super Bowl and the Phillies won the World Series? Would that not be a dream year? So listen, speaking about the Phils, we have someone here who has a whole different experience when talking about Phils. He's AJ Dereume, and he is a Punxsutawney Phil's handler and rainmaker. I talked to AJ earlier this week, and we had such a nice conversation. You're going to love this guy. And, of course, he's really busy this week because AJ and other members of the Punxsutawney Groundhog Club Inner Circle are getting ready for Phil's big day next Friday. So when I talked to AJ, he had so much good stuff to tell us about Punxsutawney, about Groundhog Day, that I can't wait for you to meet him. And when I was there, I had such a really nice experience. It's like a very quaint little town, and it has some interesting history. So listen, why don't you go get some good happy hour, something to drink, and when we come back, we'll be here with AJ Dereume. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour. Remember when you wished you had more time for yourself? And now you have it, but you notice you're keeping busy with stuff, but that stuff isn't making you feel happy or filled up? And when you think about what would make you happy and filled up, you get stuck or feel overwhelmed. And then you go back to what's more familiar, more comfortable, even if it's not making you happy. Wouldn't you love to find a way to start making sense of that deep discontent you're feeling? Well, you're not alone. I'm Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. And I know there's a place for you, one that other women have found to be both inspirational and empowering. And it's the Victorious Woman Project. Go there now and get on my mailing list, where you'll be the first to know about my upcoming online workshops, teleseminars, and more. And while you're there, take a couple minutes to look over my blog. You can download some of the free stuff I have for you and let it get your creative juices going. I'm looking forward to meeting you at the Victorious Woman Project. And that's at www.victoriouswoman.com. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm your host, Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with Punxsutawney Phil's handler and rainmaker, AJ Dereume. Glad you're here today, AJ.
I'm glad to be here too, Annmarie. Thanks for having us on.
Oh, I'm glad. AJ, listen, I was in Punxsutawney in October, and I thought it was a charming town with a park that has, this fascinates me, a real-life bandstand that's something right out of that old movie, The Music Man. Do you know the movie I'm talking about?
I do. We watched it in, I'm going to say 8th grade. We did a unit in the music class I had on The Music Man. So I know all about River City.
So there you go. So that's, your town reminds me of that with the bandstand. And if somebody was just passing through and didn't know where they were, it would take them a split second to figure out that they were in Punxsutawney because, tell me if I'm saying this right, Mahoning Street? Mahoning Street, that's Punxsutawney's Main Street, is lined with these bigger-than-life and creatively painted groundhogs that you all
It's
call...
not only Main Street. They're all over the place.
They are.
Yeah, they did like a big fundraising event years ago, and it was kind of the same time, and I don't know if those still exist. There was like those, I think there were cows that were all over New York, or maybe it was Philadelphia. I can't remember.
Oh, yeah. And in Maine, they're lobsters, yeah.
Yeah, and we just kind of had to play on that and did groundhogs here, and different businesses and some community organizations, actually the Groundhog Club as well, because we actually weren't even the owners of that project. It was a group of there was, I think, one guy from the Groundhog Club that was on the group that put that together. We did become owners of it somehow this year, so we now maintain them or I guess manage the maintenance of them. But yeah, it's pretty cool thing.
And AJ, you call them Fantastic Phils. In this part of Pennsylvania, we have a whole different meaning for Fantastic Phils,
Yeah, I think you do, but we wouldn't. We're a little too far west for that. We're more into penguins in this direction.
I know. But you know what, AJ? Those fantastic Phils. I'm one of the people who stood next to one and got my picture taken with him. My spouse did also. In fact, I posted one on today's radio wrap-up, not me, but with my spouse. Do a lot of people do that, take their pictures with one of the fantastic Phils?
It is a big deal around here, yeah. It's one of the things that people love to do. There's some really, really cool ones. So, I can't blame them. I've had my picture taken with people in front of many of them, too. So.
I believe that. Yeah, it's the one that we took was the one that was near where the bandstand was, because I like that one the best.
That one is the Groundhog Club's. That's the one that is near Phil?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, that's ours.
Yeah, oh, nice.
That one's had a couple, it's went on a couple road trips, actually.
Really?
They used it for a movie, and I can't remember what the deal was, but they actually, rented it from us. They came in, they put it on a truck, they hauled it out there, and used it for a summer, and then mailed it back to us.
Oh, that's so funny.
It's been worldly.
Well, AJ, before we talk about about Groundhog Day, I wanted to ask you some questions. Mm-hmm. And when we talked the other day, you told me that, at least when you were growing up, Punxsutawney had a strong ethnic background. Tell me about that.
It does. It still does today. The Punxsutawney it started as a lumber town. Like a lot of towns in Pennsylvania, we were the frontier, I guess, back in those days. This was out west, and it started as a lumber town. Then they pretty much clear cut everything out here over the years. And the next thing that sort of happened around Punxsutawney was coal, and it was really one of the coal centers for what fed the Industrial Revolution down in Pittsburgh and Buffalo and different cities where the steel mills were. Well, most of the coke came from our area. Huh. And so every town within 3 miles that we consider, they're all the Punxsutawney school district. They kind of feel like they're Punxsutawney, but there are these little towns within 3 miles of Punxsutawney, like the suburbs, and every one of them is either or was an Italian mining town or a Hungarian mining town or a Polish mining town or something like that. So we all grew up with with friends and family that came from these really strong ethnic towns. And so the food around here, we're pierogies are big, but also lasagna's big, and spaghetti and meatballs, and then we've got pugach, and we've got halushki, and all these things are. So it's all like a melting pot at this point. So you go to someone's house for a wedding or for a birthday or whatever, it doesn't matter. There's something from all these different nationalities. It's all mixed in.
I love that. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. And I was looking online, and first of all, you're not far from Indiana, which was the birthplace of Jimmy Stewart, and there's a big museum there. And this is what I didn't know. There's a lot of there's a wine tour. There's a lot of vineyards you have there.
There are. This area is it's pretty good for growing grapes. It's sort of similar, what they say, the appellation of this area is similar to, the southern New York stuff. So it's not as big as that area that, up in Northeast and Erie, swinging up through there where the Welch's vineyards are and stuff. But it's still pretty decent. And, there's more than a dozen wineries around us that, a lot of them actually make some Groundhog wine as well, which is pretty cool. So.
Oh, that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
AJ, every time Groundhog Day comes around, I think, I don't know who thought this up, but they are a marketing genius, and it's been around. Am I remembering this correctly? Since the 1800s?
Yeah, 1886 or 1887 maybe was the first mention of it. 1886 is when our lore kind of started for the Groundhog Club. They were celebrating it or thinking about it before that, but it started to become organized at about that point.
Who thought it up? Is it credited to any one person?
Well, it is. There was a Groundhog Club, and they were actually hunters who did kind of like a game feast every year, and they would go around in the fall and hunt groundhog, and then that was dinner. And there was the editor of the Punxsutawney Spirit, which was our newspaper at the time, actually still is today. he kind of grabbed a hold of that. And at the time, too, like, you got to think about what was going on in Pennsylvania. It was the cities weren't all quite cities then, and there was lots of towns vying for to be the next big city in Pennsylvania, and Punxsutawney was one of them, especially with the burgeoning coal industries and railroad. And so this guy, he kind of grabbed onto this groundhog lore of, the groundhog predicting the weather in Candlemas Day. And that was a German tradition that people, like I said, kind of thought about, and took these groundhog hunters and said, hey, we're gonna do something with this. And so they basically started doing it as like a publicity stunt in the newspaper. He would report on it and on what the groundhog did on February 2nd. And our tradition as the Groundhog Club kind of grew out of those beginnings.
And I'm guessing that it's, I always thought it was somebody from the Chamber of Commerce because it has to be a big boost to your local economy.
Oh, for sure. But he probably wasn't well, the Chamber of Commerce, actually, I just read this and I should know, but I don't believe it existed yet in Punxsutawney. But he would have been one of the guys that would have been, the newspaper, obviously, in the late 1800s, even still today is a big deal in our town, but especially in the 1800s, there was no Facebook, and there was no radio. If you were going to get some news, if it didn't come from Mabel across the street, then it came from the newspaper.
Yeah. So, how many people show up in Punxsutawney for Groundhog Day?
We see at the most probably around 40,000, and that would be on a big weekend. And everything kind of, the perfect storm happens when it's like the weather's nice and it's the right weekend, and there's no Super Bowl on that weekend, and that would be our biggest crowds. And then if it was on a Wednesday in the middle of the week, it doesn't make as much sense for people to take off work and make the trip. We might be more like 10,000 or 8,000. So it has a big swing, but we've got used to that and kind of know what to plan for you most of the time. So.
Well, I was in fact, I posted a link to it on today's radio wrap-up. You have like a whole weekend of things because it's on a Friday, so you have a whole weekend full of things going on in Punxsutawney this year.
It's pretty cool for us this year because we just came off. It's like you always remember the last 3 or 4 years. That's what's ingrained in your brain a little bit when you're in the planning process and stuff. But we just came off a handful of years where Groundhog Day was sort of the end of the holiday. And so, the prognostication happens, and everybody goes downtown afterwards and has a bite to eat and looks around town, and there's a couple events going on. But by probably 3 o'clock, everyone's jumping in their cars and heading home or heading to their next destination. And, this is different with Groundhog Day being on a Friday, so the prediction is on Friday morning, or, at sunrise. And then, there's stuff going on all day Friday, all day Saturday, a bunch of stuff Sunday, so,
Where do people come from who come?
Well, really all over. Anywhere from as close as I have an aunt that lives, within a mile of Gobbler's Knob. As close as there to as far away as you can get, basically. And it is not even uncommon. It's not like, oh my gosh, that's crazy, you're from Australia. It's like, okay, this guy's from Australia, this guy's from Ukraine, this guy's from Tokyo, this girl's from Norway. People come from literally all over the world. It is. And you'll say, I'll always be like, oh, well, what else are you doing while here in the United States? They're like, I don't know. This is what we came for. We're doing Groundhog Day, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's like it always, never ceases to always impress me that this is the reason. It's not like this is a part of the thing they're doing while they're here. This is for many people. This is the reason they came.
When I was telling you that after I was there, I got a little obsessed with Punxsutawney, so I was reading everything I could find online, and I did read that people, because of the movie, that people are so fascinated, and I watched the movie again back in October because I don't remember this, and of course the movie was not filmed in Punxsutawney, but and were you telling me that what did you say the reason was that they didn't film it there?
Well, I guess what I like our tongue-in-cheek answer is that, I guess they didn't feel we looked enough like Punxsutawney to be the location for filming. But the real reason is that, I don't know if it was Bill Murray or Harold Ramis or one or both their families are from out by Chicago, and so Woodstock, Illinois made a lot of sense. Logistically, it was better, and I'm not sure. I mean, sort of the same thing, like, back in those days, no one filmed anything in Pittsburgh, and now lots of things are being filmed in Pittsburgh, and I think it could have had to do with some tax breaks that they sometimes do to lure guys into film stuff. I don't know that, but sort of in my head, I always think that might have been part of it, because like I said, I see that happen in Pittsburgh now. It's like you turn around left and right, there's Tom Cruise is filming a movie, and over here they're filming Batman. And,
right.
And like back in the day, we never saw it. I don't think anyone filmed anything since The Deer Hunter until like the last 10 years in Pittsburgh, so...
You know what, AJ, we need to take a break, but when we come back, let's start talking about do some Gobbler's Knob talking.
Sounds good.
Okay, everybody stay with us. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour. Hi, this is Annmarie Kelly, author, victory strategist, and the radio show host of the Friday Happy Hour. I trust you're enjoying my conversation with this fabulous, victorious woman. If you're getting inspired with ideas and feeling empowered, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's more for you. Tips, downloads, resources at the Victorious Woman Project. Go to victoriouswoman.com and look around and get on my mailing list so you can be the first to know about the newest good things I have for you. That's www.victoriouswoman.com. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm Annmarie Kelly, and I'm here with Punxsutawney Phil's handler and rainmaker, AJ Dereume. So, AJ, you know what surprised me when I was there? That Gobbler's Knob is not right in the town, at the heart of Punxsutawney. You have to drive, like, back to when they gave you directions, like, drive down here, you go past the Walmart, and then you make a right.
Yeah, it's actually probably the first thing people notice about or think about when they get here, because they always expect it to be in the town square because of the movie, because that's the way they did it there.
Right.
And it just makes more sense that would, I guess maybe in someone's head that makes sense. Why wouldn't it be downtown? But really, when it comes down to it, we could never handle the crowd downtown. That would be one. Number two, where we have it is like a natural amphitheater, so it works really well. But Groundhog Day always took place actually out. This is the current location is probably the closest it's ever been to Punxsutawney. I think it had. I was talking to one of our guys. He's actually our historian. He's one of the oldest guys in the club, and he's just really into it. His family's been around town for 100 years, and they were always involved. But he was saying, like I said, I believe there's 4 locations that it was before it wasn't its current location. They're all like on a knob somewhere out in the woods. And that's where it's at now. It's like the highest point, surrounding town. You can actually see the town from up on there.
Oh, I didn't. If I had known that, I would have looked around more. I mean, I did walk around plenty, but I just didn't. Was focused on
if there were leaves on the trees, maybe not. But like this time of year, you have a real nice view of the town. So Gobblers. So where did the name Gobbler's Knob come from? Well, you had actually. We had talked, when we talked before, I kind of thought that might be a question you'd ask. And so I didn't know, and I did my best to figure that out. And the only thing that I got from anybody was, well, there must have been a lot of turkeys out there whenever they first came up with the name.
Yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense, because it's
But the name was part of the historical story of where, when they originally started writing about it in Punxsy Spirit, they referred to the place that Groundhog Day took place and where the prognostication took place as Gobbler's Knob, and the name actually moved with the location of the event.
Oh, interesting. When I was there, like, we weren't sure, because when for all my listeners to know, like, when we made that right at just after the Walmart, and we were driving, we were like, are we going in the right place? And then all of a sudden, there it was.
Yeah.
And we pulled in and we parked, and then we walked around because we didn't know exactly what we were looking for. And I saw there was like a community room on the property, and there was some kind of meeting going on. And you were telling me that what is now Gobbler's Knob was once a sportsman's club.
Right. So, think about these beginnings, like, Groundhog Day back. Even my fiance's mother tells me when she would go to Groundhog Day, and this would have been like the 70s. Her dad would drag her up there, and it was maybe 100 people. So when they would do this, at these other locations, it wasn't really anything more than a stump in the woods. It wasn't like a big performance like it is these days. So when the location before where it's at now, a church bought the property and built a church there. It's just down the road. And so obviously Gobbler's Knob wasn't going to work there. So they moved it a half a mile down the road to the Sportsman's Club that had like 200 acres there. It was like a hunting club. And it was the Punxsutawney Sportsman's Club. And I think all the Groundhog guys would have probably joined the club at that point. And that's where they had it, and they kind of like coexisted up there. And as things got bigger and bigger and bigger, the Sportsman's Club started thinking, we want to, like, this is sort of conflict of our interest, and they had an opportunity for another really nice piece of property. So they went and bought that, and they were going to sell the property the Gobbler's Knob is on. And the guys didn't know what to do, and it ended up, it went to bid, and another church, and this was like really random, a church from like down in Georgia started bidding on this piece of property, and it was really almost bizarre.
Like who from
driving,
Georgia?
the price was getting driven like way above what our values are around here, and the guys were pretty much like, hey, you know, we can go and buy another piece of property if we have to for this kind of money. It ended up their deal fell through, and a businessman in Punxsutawney also had his eye on the property. He decided to buy it with the understanding then that he gave the Groundhog Club a really sweetheart deal on basically the corner of the property that Gobbler's Knob is on. So at that point then we acquired the property. That was probably in the 90s, so it wasn't all that long ago.
And so the property where you have it there's, and you're right, it's like an amphitheater, and there's a stage, and there's like a railing that goes down to the stage. And I was thinking about that myself. Like when I was there was netting all around the railing, and I thought, oh, this would be a neat place to. This would be a fun. If I was getting married, that would be a fun way of going down walking down because it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It is an absolutely beautiful piece of property. I mean, we're really lucky. This is a beautiful area of the country, even, and you know that sort of. Gobbler's Knob is a perfect example of, you know, western PA. You know, lots of big deciduous trees and nice, you know, grassy areas and everything. But yeah, it is. I should say because the Sportsman's Club, we do have that big. There's like a meeting hall there,
right?
That wouldn't really be necessary for our operations, but it was necessary for theirs, and so we acquired that or inherited that. So lots of people actually do end up having weddings there, and. I would actually. We talked about having our wedding there, but they're doing, or we're going to be doing some renovations this summer, which is a whole other story. So it's going to be under construction. So our wedding is not going to work there. We had to pick another venue.
Yeah, that's a shame because I was thinking how neat that would be to like walk down that aisle to the stage. I thought it was kind of neat.
Yeah, it's set. I mean, it's designed for it. So.
Now, AJ, listen. I think most people would be surprised to find out that not only is Phil the most famous groundhog in Pennsylvania, in the world, but he's famous enough to have his own inner circle, and you're one of them.
Yep.
So how many people are in the circle?
Well, there's space for 15 of us. We are currently 14. We had so when you become an inner circle member, you must reside in the Punxsutawney area, which is kind of defined by us at the time, you know, as need be. But it's what makes sense. I mean, we wouldn't we wouldn't ask someone to join that lived in Indiana, you know, for example. But they might be in the next school district over, just across the line.
That makes sense.
Made sense. So anyway. The only way you get out, once you're asked to be in, if you decide to accept the invitation, the only way you get out is to retire or die or move away. So this individual unfortunately died, and he was great. I mean, he'd been a member for a long time, and kind of like our everyman. I mean, we still look around and say, like, oh my gosh, this thing didn't get done. Who did that? And everyone's like, I don't know. And then they find out it was his name was Bob Roberts, and they find out it was him. So he was just a really, really, really great guy, and we've had a hard time replacing him. Normally we elect pretty quickly, but we have this will be the second Groundhog Day without him there, and we haven't replaced them yet. So we do have an opening.
Oh, so are you all men? Like, I guess I live too far, huh?
You do. You live too far, but you could move here. And I know women are eligible just as well as men.
Oh, very nice. That's good. So, but let me ask you this. Like, what do you in the inner circle do, like, when in your non-inner circle world?
Well, everyone is... no one in the inner circle is, nobody, we only have one employee, I guess I should say. It's, we have an executive director named Katie Donald.
And she was, she connected me with you. She was really nice.
She's great. And we didn't always have, we always had someone, we didn't always have someone full-time. And, she's full-time. And, it's taken us to new levels, and, it's been a really good thing. But, the rest of us all have a day job too, except for, I think there may be 2 or 3 guys that are actually retired. But yeah, the rest of us, there's one guy's a real estate agent, one guy is in the coal business, I myself am in the gas business. Our president's a retired funeral director. So there's a pretty good...
So you all have like regular jobs, and this is a volunteer being part of the inner circle is volunteer.
Yep.
Yeah. And how long have you been doing it?
I've been doing it... I'll be 39 this year. I got in when I was 31, so this will be my 9th year, I guess. Right?
Very nice.
My 8th year. Whatever.
And how
everyone out there can do the math.
So how long have you been going to Gobbler's Knob? Like, did you do that as a kid?
Well, I started going. So my great-grandfather was in the Groundhog Club prior to there being an inner circle. So anyone can join the Groundhog Club. Actually, you could join it if you want. You just go on our website and join it, just like you're joining, the local, Everett Elks or Eagles Club or something like that. I mean, there's no stipulations to being a member of the Groundhog Club. You just pay your dues and join, and it gets you privy to some insider tracked information and some things throughout the year. But what the heck was that? Where was I going with that?
Oh, I was asking it. I don't even remember.
We were talking about the Groundhog Club.
How long you've been going, and how long you've been a member, and what your history was with Groundhog.
Yep. So my great-grandfather was a member of the Groundhog Club. Then in like the 50s, the guy that was the president of the club at the time decided they were going to have an inner circle, and that would be like a board of directors to more finely manage Groundhog Day. And he was trying to develop it and take it to some new levels, and he did. He was a big kind of springboard into what we have today, and his name was Sam Light. Him and his wife, Elaine Light, were both, I mean, there's amazing stories about them, too. It's a whole, I should touch on that after I finish this. But anyway, my great-grandfather was in the Groundhog Club. Then my grandfather was in the inner circle. My father then ended up being in the inner circle, and then I ended up being in the inner circle. And so I started going up to Gobbler's Knob when I was probably 5 years old. My dad would take me up there to see my grandfather. And then, we always, that was a big thing for our family. It was always, we went to see my grandfather, and then he passed away, and a handful of years later my dad got in the club, and it was still a big deal to us, and we kept going, and it's always been a part of my life.
Yeah, in your case, it was like passed down from generation to generation. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
AJ, we need to take another break, so if everybody will just hang in there with us, we'll be back in just a couple minutes. You're listening to the Friday Happy Hour. Are you one of those women who lived the first part of your life as a really good girl? That is, you did all the right things and followed all the so-called rules for women? I was like that, too. But have you noticed that once you passed 40, you have less patience for those rules? Maybe you even think that the rules really don't make sense for you anymore. Maybe they never did, and you just didn't realize it. Do you want to go where other recovering good girls meet to inspire each other and support their new empowered selves? Then join me, Annmarie Kelly, and some very fabulous Victorious Women. We're on Facebook at the Victorious Woman Project. So go to facebook.com/Victorious Woman Project. I'll talk to you there. Welcome back to the Friday Happy Hour. I'm Annmarie Kelly, and we're here with AJ Dereume, who is Punxsutawney Phil's handler and rainmaker. And you know what? AJ, I was wondering, like, how long, I do a fundraiser every year, so I know how long it takes to put that together. When do you start planning for Groundhog Day? And you also do other events through the year, right?
Yeah, we do events kind of all year long. I'd say at least one a month, one big one every couple months probably. But we basically, if Katie had her way, our executive director, we'd probably start planning Groundhog Day, on February 3rd. But we usually kind of go to like radio silence for at least a couple weeks and try to get our wits back around us.
Yeah, sure.
January's kind of crazy. So once we get Groundhog Day out of the way for the year, we take a couple weeks and kind of no one talks to each other. But then we got to get back at it because we literally do start planning right away. I mean, it just or promoting Punxsutawney Phil is kind of a year-round job, even though it's all about Groundhog Day. To us, it's all about become promoting the region and promoting the town and the community and even Pennsylvania at large.
So you were saying that there were some traditions that happen. What are some of the oddest Groundhog Day traditions that you know of?
Well, I'll tell you what. One of the first ones is actually that guy I mentioned, Sam Light. He was the one that started it. So back in the 50s, he decided that being that we consider Phil to be royalty, and back then they would say, he was actually named for King Philip originally. So Sam decided that we should wear a tuxedo and a top hat to honor Phil, as you would any royalty. And what that sort of came from was, back in the day, whenever a dignitary would arrive on the cruise ship or a travel vessel, I suppose, not even just a cruise ship, but a travel vessel, he would always be greeted by people in tuxedos, and that was what Sam thought that was perfect. That was perfect for Phil. So that's one of our traditions. That translates
tuxedos and top hats
to our followers. The faithful followers of Phil show up on Groundhog Day every year. In the thousands and thousands of people, and they all have these crazy traditions. Like there's you look through the crowd, and if you're someone that watches it every year, you'll see some of the same hats pop up. There's some people with some pretty intricate homemade hats and costumes, and down to they stand in the same place every year. I met a group in the crowd one year that they've been coming here for 25 or 30 years. They all are poets, and they write poems about Groundhog Day, and they have a little newsletter and everything. I mean, there's all kinds of very unique traditions surrounding Groundhog Day that aren't even known to us. So
interesting. And I did find some of those when I was poking around, even just like in the last couple of days. I thought, wow, this is really way bigger than I thought.
Yeah.
Like even as obsessed as I was last October, I thought, wow, this is really something. Yeah. What kind of funny stories, ones that you can share on the air? Do you have a couple funny stories?
Well, there's, it is still, Phil is still a wild animal, so some crazy stuff does happen. There was one year where, now this would be, our president now used to be the handler, and he the president at the time was named Bud Dunkel, and Bud knocked on the stump 3 times with his acacia wood cane, as we do, and Bill got down to get Phil out of the stump, and he opened the doors, and he looked up at Bud, kind of over his shoulder, and he whispered, "Hey, we don't have a groundhog." And
oh my goodness!
I guess they say, Bud looked down at Bill and said, "Well, you better find one, and you better find one quick."
Oh my goodness!
So Bill started digging, and here what had happened: the stump had started to rot, and Phil burrowed deep into the stump and actually underneath it. So Bill just, he started reaching down through this chewed up wood and into the, and kept reaching and kept digging and digging, and eventually, I don't know if he latched onto Phil or Phil latched onto him, but he came out with a groundhog. So.
Oh my goodness! Oh, that's too much.
Yeah.
Has Phil ever bitten one of his handlers?
He does from time to time. It's kind of like, we kind of explain it as if you're holding a little kid, and when they went down, they're going to start getting squirmy, and maybe they'll start fussing a little bit. Phil's sort of the same way, and if you try to hold him for too long and he's had enough of it, he's probably going to give you a little nip. But usually it's not like anything, it's not like bone crushing or I can't even fathom a time that anyone had to go to get stitches or anything like that. But
well, that's good.
Yeah, but he does. He'll put some pressure on you from time to time. So
interesting. And I'm wondering, with all the traditions and everything, has there ever been like a particular story that touched your heart in a certain way? You know, like a touching story.
Well, I'll tell you what, and I really wish I could remember this kid's name, but there was a kid, and I think it was maybe even part of the Make-A-Wish program, but he actually celebrated Groundhog Day, and he would like hold his own stuffed Punxsutawney Phil up, and like this was a big deal to him. And for his Make-A-Wish wish, he wanted to meet Punxsutawney Phil, and so they set this all up and brought him to Punxsutawney, and made him got him a top hat and kind of the whole 9 yards, and did this whole thing with him, and it was
neat.
It was pretty cool because it just shows like how big of a thing the holiday is to some people, and for him this was like, and rightfully so, it was like meeting Santa Claus.
Yeah. Oh, that's something, huh? Can you walk me through Groundhog Day? Like, where do you all meet? All of you in the inner circle.
Day, you mean on Groundhog Day morning?
Yeah, on that morning, because it's like by the time we say it in my newscast here outside of Philly, it's like just in time for Phil to come out.
Right. That's a good question. Yeah. So, and this is where like a lot of the good times happen. So, the Gobbler's Knob opens at 3 a.m.
Oh my goodness! And people come that early?
Well, they do. There's actually a group of some of the traditionalists, like I said, the people that are year after year, true fans, or I should say, just fans that have been fans for a long time, that will actually they're standing at the gate waiting for it to open at 3 a.m. And when it does, they all run down because they want to get their same spots. And I can tell you they're always there because, it's to the point now where we all know each other by first names because we see each other every year up there. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty cool. But, that happens at 3 a.m. It starts to people are starting to filter in at that point. And at 4 o'clock, it's kind of going crazy. It's really filling up. By 5 o'clock, you're almost like, you better be there because it takes time to it's dark, so you got to get the lay of the land. You might want to get a hot chocolate or get a bite to eat, and you still have to take the time to actually work your way into the crowd because it's not like you have a seat, that's reserved for you or something. So if you want to be close, you got to be early. If you got there, I can tell you that it never fails every year. After the part that you guys see on television, we do some pictures and do some other things, and the place starts to clear out. And I am usually one of the last guys to get off of Gobbler's Knob, and I'll be like walking around, walking through the parking lot or something, and a car will pull in, and I'll be like, "Did it happen?" Yeah, like an hour and a half ago. And they're like, "Oh man, we were at a bar in Washington, D.C., and we just decided, what the heck, let's go." We all got in the car, and we thought we'd make it in time, and we didn't. But it never fails. Every year there's a half a dozen people that happens to. So, yeah, you got to get here early. But anyway, our time up there, our guys get there anywhere from midnight to probably 4, and basically we spend our time kind of cruising the grounds and meeting people and talking to people about Groundhog Day, learning their story and telling our story, and probably about the time the fireworks go off, so sometime around 6 o'clock, which it's a spectacular fireworks display. If you saw it, you wouldn't even believe that it's going on in Punxsutawney. It's like you'd think you were at like Heinz Field or PNC Park.
Wow.
It's a really amazing fireworks display. It's something to see in itself. But about the time of that, the inner circle starts to culminate up toward our building, up the hall that you were talking about. Mm-hmm. And we kind of get our game plan together. We've already got it together, but we sort of, kind of review what our plan is, get lined up because we do walk in a particular order. And so we get ready. They do the national anthem, and then and then we do what we call our trek. So we start up there, and the inner circle comes down, and there's some local dignitaries and usually a couple VIPs. Like we'll have a guest speaker that's in town for the weekend. This year it's Larry Rickert, who is a news reporter for KDKA in Pittsburgh, and a big part of Groundhog Day over the years. He's reported on Groundhog Day. He's kind of like a Phil Connor, like Bill Murray's character from the movie. And except for he is more of a fan of Groundhog Day than Bill Murray originally was in the movie. So anyway, we all walk down down that walkway that you were talking about, that kind of splits the viewing area in half. We walk down through there and make our way onto the stage, and at that point, that's when what you would see on television sort of picks up. But at that point, it's rolling fast. I mean, Groundhog Day is sort of like, I heard a guy explain it last night. So it's like a Kentucky Derby. The build-up is 99% of the event, and then the actual, the race takes a couple seconds, just like coming out of a stump doesn't take too long.
Well, AJ, our time went so fast, and we need to go. I'm just really curious to ask you real fast, is your sweetie a hometown girl?
She is. She's Punxsutawney born and raised. Her name's Stevie Taylor, and I have to remind her sometimes, but she, I said, you are like, I should say this. Okay, so if you watch Groundhog Day, there's what we call the Philettes, and they're a group of high school, I think seniors, maybe juniors and seniors, that are kind of like our cheerleaders, and they work on the stage and help the guys that are doing the entertainment in the morning and do some dances and a couple of skits and stuff like that. Well, Stevie was a Philette, and she is the first Philette to ever make it from there to the head table at our banquet. So.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Well, AJ, we have to go, but I wish you and Stevie a lifetime of happiness and prosperity, and thank you for joining us on the Friday Happy Hour. And next Friday is Phil's big day, and we'll be watching.
Sounds good. Well, I'll be there, so I'll be happy to say hello. I appreciate it, everybody. Have
a fun and fabulous weekend. And to all of you, my Victory Chicks and guys who love us, I wish you all... I just was talking to AJ for such a long time. We have to go. So have a fabulous weekend. I have a quote that I'll post on the radio wrap-up later today. And come back next week. Thanks for coming today. Chin's on.
Thanks for listening to this Friday Happy Hour. Make sure you subscribe, rate and review today's show. And join us again next week for the Friday Happy Hour with Annmarie Kelly.